Hello, my friends. How are you? Welcome to a special Global Pop episode of 30 Albums for 30 Years. I am your host, Jay Sweet. Today, we will be discovering the music of South Africa, Afropop music, and I do want to apologize in advance for any mispronunciations that happened throughout this episode. I do my best to try to find the accepted pronunciation for each artist and style, and I use whatever resource I can, but I'm sure with my New Jersey accent and my lack of knowledge of the African languages that I make a few mistakes here. So bear with me as we discover the fantastic music of South Africa and Afropop music. Before we get into the music, let me give you a brief overview as to the history of South Africa. Of course, way before any European intervention, there were native tribes and indigenous people living in South Africa. And then in 1652, the Dutch established a trading post at Cape Town, which later became a permanent settlement, and this marked the beginning of European colonization. Then the British took control of the Cape Colony in 1795 and later during the Napoleonic Wars. So they returned the colony to the Dutch in 1803, only to recapture it again in 1806. Then we have what's called the Great Trek in the 1830s and 1840s. It saw Boer settlers, those are Dutch descendant people, moving inland to escape British rule. And they established their own state, including the Orange Free State and the South African Republic. The Zulu kingdom, led by King Shaka, became a dominant force in southern Africa during the early 19th century, and then conflicts between the British, the Boers, and various indigenous groups, including the Zulus, led to the Anglo-Zulu War and several other wars. During the late 19th century, European powers, including the British and the Dutch, expanded their colonial presence in South Africa as part of what became known as the Scramble for Africa. Then we have the South African War, which is also named the Anglo-Boer War. It was fought between 1899 and 1902. The war was a result of the tensions between the British Empire and these Dutch Boer states. It had significant impact on the region and really marked the end of the independent Boer republics. In 1910, the Union of South Africa was formed, bringing together the former British Cape Colonies with the former Boer republics. This marked the establishment of a self-governing dominion or region within the British Empire. Then, the system of apartheid was implemented by the National Party government. Apartheid is a system of institutionalized racial segregation. It began in 1948. And then the African National Congress and other organizations led the struggle, a fight against apartheid, and its leader was Nelson Mandela. This led to Mandela's imprisonment beginning in 1962. Negotiations between the apartheid government and the anti-apartheid movement led to the release of Nelson Mandela from prison in 1990 and the end of apartheid. South Africa held its first multiracial democratic election in 1994, leading to Nelson Mandela becoming the country's first black president. South Africa has since undergone significant social, economic, and political changes, including the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which was aimed at addressing the atrocities of apartheid. But challenges such as poverty, corruption, and inequality still persist in South Africa, but it does now remain a diverse and culturally rich nation. Afropop music is a fusion of African rhythms, melodies, and instruments with elements of pop music, hip hop music, reggae, or other global musical genres. Afropop is known for its catchy melodies, its infectious rhythms, and the addressing of many themes, including love, social issues, and cultural identity. Lyrics in Afropop songs are often performed in multiple African languages and English or other widely spoken global languages. Afropop musicians may use a mix of traditional African instruments like the kora, the balafon, the kalimba, alongside more modern instruments like the electric bass, synthesizers, electric guitar, drum machines, what have you. Afropop is heavily influenced by the rich and diverse rhythms of African music. You can't talk about Afropop without talking about rhythm. These rhythms are created by using traditional percussion instruments like the djembe, talking drums, congas, and bongos. Also, the usage of polyrhythms, which means a layering of multiple rhythms being presented at the same time, alongside syncopation, which means it's a displacement of the beat. This is common in Afropop music, so the rhythmic element can be quite sophisticated. Two South African singing styles are Isikatamea, which is a Zulu-based singing from South Africa, where a clicking sound is used, and Mbubwe, a South African style of a cappella singing, unaccompanied singing with intricate harmonies. The group that best represents these vocal traditions is Lady Smith Black Mambazo. Lady Smith Black Mambazo is a South African male choral group that became known internationally when featured on Paul Simon's hit album Graceland. The group formed in 1960s as Ezimnyama. Ezimnyama means the black ones. In 1964, they changed their name to Lady Smith Black Mambazo. Lady Smith is a place in South Africa. Black references the black ox, which is considered the strongest farm animal. And Mambazo means axe in Zulu. The axe represents the group's desire to chop down their competition. Lady Smith Black Mambazo frequently entered and won vocal competitions. The group recorded their first album, Mabutho, in 1973, which went gold. In 1985, singer, songwriter, and guitarist Paul Simon traveled to South Africa to find musicians to record his album Graceland, and he eventually hooked up with Lady Smith Black Mambazo. Together, they entered a London recording studio to record tracks for the album and even performed together on Saturday Night Live. The record, Graceland, sold 16 million copies and really put Lady Smith Black Mambazo on the international map. When apartheid, a system of racial segregation, was abolished in 1991 in South Africa, it brought new hope to many South Africans. When activist Nelson Mandela was released from prison after 27 years, he named Lady Smith Black Mambazo South Africa's cultural ambassadors. Lady Smith Black Mambazo has recorded with many noted musicians like Dolly Parton, Josh Groban, Mavis Staples, Zap Mama, Sarah McLachlan, Melissa Etheridge, Natalie Merchant, Emmylou Harris, Taj Mahal, and many more. Hello My Baby is a fantastic showcase for Lady Smith Black Mambazo. Take notice of the common African process of call and response singing. Call and response singing is a tradition in which the leader sings a passage and the ensemble answers. It's carried through to many forms, including rock and roll, blues, jazz, what have you. Enjoy Hello My Baby. Diamonds on the Soles of Her Shoes is a great track. It's a song by American singer and songwriter Paul Simon. It was the fourth single from his album Graceland, which was released in 1986. And the song features Lady Smith Black Mambazo, singing in the Zulu language. The music video shows how the group incorporated choreographed dancing into their performance. Check it out. Diamonds on the soles of her shoes. Miriam Makeba, born in 1932, is a South African singer and civil rights activist who grew up in the segregated area of Johannesburg, South Africa. She began singing professionally in 1950, first with the Manhattan Brothers Band and then the Skylarks, which was an all-girl group. She then had a brief role in an anti-apartheid film called Come Back to Africa, and it brought her international attention. Soon thereafter, she moved to New York and met singer Harry Belafonte, who served as her mentor. In 1959, she appeared on the famed Steve Allen Show to an audience of 60 million. In 1960, Makeba attempted to return to Africa to attend her mother's funeral, but she was told she was exiled from the country for her anti-apartheid views. Meanwhile, she was doing well in the U.S. and scored a hit album, An Evening with Belafonte and Makeba in 1965, and the hit song Pata Pata in 1967. In 1968, Makeba married Black Panther leader and activist Stokely Carmichael. This led to a lack of support from some white audiences, and she then turned to more protest music. When apartheid was dismantled in 1990, she returned to South Africa and had continued success and was eventually named a Goodwill Ambassador. Makeba was one of the first African musicians to find success internationally. Nelson Mandela said the following: "Her music inspired a powerful sense of hope in all of us." Miriam Makeba's most successful song is Pata Pata, which means touch, touch. Pata Pata is an Afropop dance song that was released in the US in 1967. The Pata Pata is a provocative dance style that was played in the 1950s in Johannesburg bars. The song reached number 12 on the US Billboard charts, which is pretty remarkable. And on the night that she died, Makeba performed Pata Pata just before she collapsed on stage in 2008 at the age of 76. Another notable release by Miriam Makeba is called The Click Song. The Click Song is a traditional South African wedding song that includes the African click singing tradition. The folk song refers to the knocking beetle, which makes a clicking sound, and it is sung in the Xhosa language, that's spelled Xhosa. The Click Song. All right, now let's discuss Marabi music. Marabi music is often considered one of the precursors to various African jazz styles. It originated in the early 20th century in the townships of Johannesburg, and it was closely associated with the Black urban experience in Johannesburg during the early 1900s. It became popular during a time when the urbanization and migration of people became more rapid in the growing cities of South Africa. Marabi music was primarily piano-based, with musicians often playing in local taverns or private homes and other informal venues. Like most African music, it incorporates syncopated rhythms and call and response patterns. Marabi music has played a crucial role in providing entertainment, and it also helps to preserve the cultural identity and heritage of Black South Africans. One of the most noted musicians to have adopted Marabe music is Abdullah Ibrahim. Ibrahim is born as Adolf Johannes Brand in 1934. He is a mixed-race South African pianist from Cape Town. Ibrahim was first professionally known as Dollar Brand, and he left the oppressive segregation of South Africa and moved to Europe in 1962. It was there that he was discovered by the great Duke Ellington. The famed bandleader heard Ibrahim at a club and was impressed. This led to Ellington setting up a recording session for the pianist called Duke Ellington Presents the Dollar Brand Trio. In 1964, Ibrahim moved to New York and also played at the Newport Jazz Festival. In 1967, he studied at the Juilliard School of Music after receiving a grant. While in New York, he became part of a scene that included forward-looking jazzmen like Ornette Coleman, John Coltrane, Cecil Taylor, and Pharoah Sanders. In 1968, he made a brief trip back to Cape Town, and that's when he adopted Islam and the name Abdullah Ibrahim. In 1970, he made a religious pilgrimage to the Holy Land of Mecca to further connect to his faith. Afterwards, he was essentially exiled from returning to South Africa during the apartheid period. By incorporating African elements with American jazz, Abdullah Ibrahim helped develop a jazz subgenre called Cape Jazz. The now 89-year-old piano master made his last recording in 2020. Manenberg is a Cape Jazz classic that incorporates the Marabe tradition. It was written and performed by Abdullah Ibrahim and was recorded in 1974 on the record Dollar Brand. Manenberg is where it's happening, so he released it under his former name, Dollar Brand. The song was a hit and became identified with an anti-apartheid movement. The original version lasts well over 13 minutes long. The song is reported to have inspired Nelson Mandela with hope during his imprisonment. Ibrahim told an interviewer in 2012 that the record was smuggled in by lawyers into the prison where music was banned and played in the control room over the loudspeakers, and that on hearing the song, Mandela said, "Liberation is near." Next up is Kwela music. Kwela music is a popular musical genre that originated in South Africa, particularly in the urban townships of Johannesburg in the 1950s. The term Kwela is derived from the Zulu word ukwila, which means to climb or to mount. The term may also be associated with a slang term that police used while looking for illegal shebeens. Those are underground bars. Kwela music is primarily instrumental and is characterized by the use of wind instruments, particularly the penny whistles or the tin flutes, as well as other instruments like guitars, banjos, and sometimes accordions. Kwela music is known for its danceable rhythms and melodies. It was often performed on street corners and in other public places, which contributed to its popularity and its accessibility. While Kwela music was most popular in the 1950s and the 1960s, its influence can still be heard in contemporary South African music. It remains an important part of the country's cultural heritage. Spokes Mashiane is considered one of the premier performers of Kwela music. Mashiane is regarded as one of the great penny whistle artists and he became internationally renowned for his ability and his music, and even worked with American jazzman Bud Shank and performed at the 1965 Newport Folk Festival. Mashayane was born in 1933 and died in 1972, that's 39 years of age, from liver cirrhosis. Here we will hear Mashayane perform Kwela Spokes from the album King Kwela, 1991. Mbaqanga music is a genre of South African music that originated in the townships of Johannesburg in the 1960s. The term Mbaqanga is often used to refer to both a style of music and a type of dance associated with the genre. The music is known for its lively and upbeat rhythms, combining elements of jazz, traditional African music, and Western pop music. Mbaqanga music includes the use of instruments like the marimbas and the penny whistles, as well as Western instruments such as electric guitar and brass instruments. The lyrics are often social and political in nature, and often speak of themes of everyday life in the townships of Johannesburg. One of the great bands of Mbaqanga music is Malatini and the Mahotella Queens. Malatini is a gravelly voiced singer, or was, and he was known throughout South Africa and neighboring countries such as Zimbabwe and Botswana during his career. He began singing and gaining notoriety in the 1950s and 1960s. The Mahotella Queens were a group of 5 female vocalists who gained attention in the 1960s. And although the lineup had changed, the Queens eventually hooked up with Malatini to form the supergroup Malatini and the Mahotella Queens. Check out this track from the group. It's called Gazette. It's from their 1987 self-titled album. Listen to the blend of Malatini's voice along with the Queens, and also the repetitive groove and the specific electric guitar figures. Check it out, Gazette. Kwaito music, Kwaito, often addresses social and political issues that South Africans face, particularly those in urban areas. It emerged in the post-apartheid era, so that's 1990, and the lyrics frequently touch on topics like poverty, unemployment, and the challenges of life in the townships. Some key characteristics include electric beats, synths, and samples. It's essentially South African hip-hop music. Zola is a South African musician, actor, and television presenter who gained fame in the late 1990s and early 2000s for his contributions to Kwaito music. He is often referred to as one of the pioneers of the genre. He was born in 1977 in a township near Johannesburg, South Africa, and his music infuses socially conscious lyrics that addresses the issues faced by the people living in South African townships. He's also a known actor. He's appeared in the popular South African television drama series called Yazoo Yazoo, which depicts the challenges and realities of life in South African schools. He has used his platform to continue to address social and political issues in the country, making him an influential figure in South African pop culture. Check out one of his latest releases called Amber. The graphic lyrics speak of his love and his desire for a girl named Amber, a girl he has wanted since college. All right, my friends, there you have it, our introduction to South African Afropop music. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I hope I didn't butcher too many words. I did my best. And together, let's keep this music alive. Let's keep listening. Let's keep enjoying the music from different cultures. Have a wonderful day. Peace.